Hey up, and welcome to Pup's Corner. Today, we're going to be reviewing Ant-Man suits from Ant-Man's MCU tenure, because it's flavor of the month. And I know you guys enjoy my suit ranking videos, and I enjoy making them too. I don't know why, superhero suits always just capture my imagination. I'm not like a massive costume design whiz or anything, nor am I necessarily into textiles or whatever. But superhero suits, they're cool, you know? I always kind of low-key resent it when a superhero movie skimps out on the suit. I want to see it. The Dark Knight Rises, for example. Batman wears the suit for 20 minutes of that film? Captain America the Winter Soldier was very, very sparing with how much he wore the suit in that film. And Amazing Spider-Man 2 is particularly egregious because, oh my god, that suit is perfect, yet they barely use it in that film. But I'm getting off track. Ant-Man is the latest thing, and he's got a small library of costumes, so let's rank them from worst to best. But to pad things out a little bit, because there aren't many Ant-Man suits, I'm also going to be including a separate category for the Wasps costumes, as well as some honorable mentions for just shrinky suits that do not belong to either Ant-Man or the Wasp. So while the algorithm is going to like it if I call it Ant-Man suits ranked, what I really mean is MCU shrinky suits. And it's hey, if I'm gonna false advertise, might as well have something bigger behind the curtain, eh?
Hello there, I'm Captain America, and I'm here to give you a PSA. Now, if you love your country, you'll want to subscribe to Channel Pup. If you don't love your country, well, that's just too bad. But you can still subscribe anyway. Commies welcome. And of course, actually, we'll talk about that. But of course, nothing comes free in this country, except for freedom. And no exception is the Adobe subscriptions that Channel Pup needs to make these videos. So be sure to check out the Patreon link in the description below. And God bless America.
Alright, enough of that silliness. We're gonna start with the Wasps suits ranked. So we got 4 suits here. So coming in at number 4 as the worst of the Wasps costumes in the Ant-Man movies, we have Hope van Dyne's suit from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, it is worth noting ahead of time that, the Wasp doesn't actually have a bad suit on this list. This one just happens to be the weakest one in my opinion. But there's nothing outright bad about it. Now, we did see a Wasp prototype costume at the end of the first Ant-Man movie, and this seems to be an evolution of that. Now, the reason this comes in at bottom is because this is an inferior version of that suit, in my opinion. A lot of things that look kind of stylish on that suit are just really downplayed here. I don't mind the fact they added sleeves to it, that's completely fine by me. But it's less colorful, it's less clean. Rather than a nice bright goldy color like the suit that we saw in Ant-Man 2014, we've got this very muted bronzy suit instead. And I really don't know why they did that. All the nice bright red accents on the previous version have now been dulled down to just a slightly more dull red with more of a piping style to it instead. It's got more of a kind of a motocross look to it, which does make some sense, but it's just lost that showy look that the previous one had, in favor of something that just blends in with everything else a lot more. Again, it's not bad or awful or anything like that. It's a perfectly fine suit. It's just not as nice as what we were teased with in 2014. Coming in at number 3, we have the Wasp suit as worn by Janet Van Dyne. Now, I've obviously got a soft spot towards this suit because, huzzah, it's my favorite color, red. But this is a really neat suit. Having more the style of a double-breasted coat, it gives the sense that Janet is quite an adventurer. This is more like a cool remix of the Ant-Man suit than necessarily a Wasp suit of its own right, but I think they did cool things with this suit to really change it up. And the double-breasted jacket approach was a really smart way to go. I also like that this isn't necessarily a one-piece like the typical Ant-Man suit is. It looks like there is a top and bottom layer to it. On a whole, it's a cool suit, and it was difficult for me not to put this in the top spot just because it's red. I love the color red. Red's a good color. Could you tell I like the color red? You could probably tell. Coming in at number 2 for the Wasps suits, we have the suit worn by Hope van Dyne in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Huge improvement over the Ant-Man and the Wasp suit. Now, this suit does still fall prey to the issue of maybe just having a few too many layers to it. Listen, I'm not someone that's too bothered by line work on MCU suits. Oftentimes, the lines serve the purpose of giving form and function and making things look more than just spandex costumes. I get that. And the shrinky suits are practical devices, so yes, it does make sense. However, I will say they did go a tad overboard on the Quantumania suits. And yeah, Hope's costume is a bit of a victim to that. However, the colors are much nicer this time, with a nice rich shade of yellow contrasting really nicely against the black of the suit. Some really nice blue accents on there too. The red accents are pretty much gone, but I do like the colors that they have here, and I think that's the main thing with this suit that just puts it that far ahead of the Ant-Man and the Wasp version of this suit, is it's just got much nicer colors this time. It doesn't all blend into this muddy look that the previous suit had. There's definitely a few too many black accents going on around the chest and torso area on this suit, which I would probably knock it off a few points for, but again, this suit really isn't bad. A huge improvement on what came before, and that's why it does take such a high spot in this list. However, coming in at first place, the first time appears to be the charm, as the Wasp suit from 2014's Ant-Man still takes the cake. Now, I get why they didn't go for the sleeveless look, however, it would have looked good. But fair play to him, I get that. But everything else about this costume is so much better than what they ended up going for. And the saddest part about this is that this costume was never actually worn. Like, no one ever wore this. I don't even know if this is a practical prop. This could be CGI for all I know. But of all of the MCU Wasp designs, this one is by far the cleanest. The colors are a really nice shade. I love the red accents on there. The gold is a really nice color. I actually really like the line work on this suit. It's much more elegant than the later suits would go on to be. It kind of feels like a modern spin on like a 50s sci-fi look. I don't know what else to really say. This is a much nicer suit than anything that Hope van Dyne would actually go on to wear in these films, which is a real shame. But this design in of itself was just a home run. There's a little asymmetry going on around the leg section, which I think I would like to see changed, should this suit ever actually make it to being worn. But I think this was always meant to be kind of like just an unfinished prototype. So yeah, figures the unfinished prototype would be the best looking suit of the bunch. Right, well, before we go on to the Ant-Man suit ranking, let's look at what I've considered to be honorable mentions. So these are just other shrinky suits that were either worn or not worn in the MCU. So, starting off, and in no particular order, we're going to start off with Cassie's Stinger suit. Whether or not this is actually going to go on to become the Stinger, or if she's just going to be referred to as Cassie going forward. Still, she has her own suit, which is inspired by her Stinger look in the comics. And it's not horrible, but it's hard to really make out anything here. It's a weird patchwork of black and purple, and I think I'm identifying a problem I have with the later Ant-Man suits on this list, is that rather than having any solid color sections, it's just, you know, this constant mix of like black and other colored stripes. There's a circle in the middle, but it's cut through by different tech components. Just nothing about these suits looks solid. I think that's my issue here, is everything looks like it's being cut up by everything. And it doesn't help matters that this is an incredibly muted purple. So what you have is just this weird mess of purple and black. Yeah, not great. Then we have the yellow jacket outfit as worn by Darren Cross in Ant-Man 2014. This looked cool. This looked amazing. I really like how the torso design has kind of the look of a yellow jacket face. Also, the sort of texture that we've got on the yellow sections looks amazing. It's so fluorescent, but also I really love the honeycomb patterns that they've got going on. The helmet as well is just really freaky looking, being a bit more form-fitting than Ant-Man's helmet, with much larger sections for the eyes, of which there appear to be 4 of them, meaning that no kind of human face can be made out in this mask. Now, in terms of comic bookiness, this is obviously a massively drastic reinvention of the yellow jacket, but I like how the big shoulder wings have been reinterpreted into weapons. This is a really cool reinvention of the yellow jacket design, and just a really cool design in its own right. Next up, we have the yellow jacket costume as worn by Hank Pym in episode 3 of Marvel's What If, which is definitely one of the better episodes of the series. And it was cool to see Hank Pym wear a yellow jacket costume, with this costume taking a few more nods from the yellow jacket costume from the comics, complete with the big ol' shoulder wings. This costume is basically Hank Pym's Ant-Man suit, but reworked into a yellow jacket costume. So it has more the design of the Ant-Man suit, but with yellow accents on it instead of red. However, the chest section, rather than that being red, is now black. But but with yellow outlines. Now, there is something of a slight color imbalance on this suit. I think the chest section probably would have looked a little bit better in yellow rather than black, but on a whole, it's a really solid design. And finally, for honorable mentions, we have to talk about the prototype helmet, which is a recreation of Ant-Man's classic helmet from the comic books. This thing just lays around in Hank Pym's office, but it is so retro space-agey looking that it's impossible to not love the charm this thing has. I really want to see a classic Ant-Man suit in the MCU, and I think we will get it eventually. Like, that's been something they've been doing for, like, the later appearances of certain characters, is giving them their classic suits quite late in the game, be it their final suit or be it like a Halloween costume kind of thing. I'm hoping that we do see a full classic Ant-Man suit in a later film, just for the crack of it, you know? Alright, well, speaking of Ant-Man, it's time to get to the ranking of the Ant-Man suits. And we have a surprising 6 of them to rank. So, starting off at number 6 is Scott Lang's suit from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. What happened here? I said this about Hope's costume from Quantumania and Cassie's as well. There is no just solid color on any of these suits that isn't cut up by some intrusive black sections. Like, usually Ant-Man's torso is red, but here we've just got black sections cutting through all of this. And the red now relegated to kind of these little lines and panels that go down the torso. You've got the first Ant-Man costume in the MCU to have the oval on the chest, yet it's constantly cut through by other details. And then it's got these wings next to it, and just, what is going on here? It's also just weirdly bulky looking. When everyone was kind of talking sass about this costume on Twitter, I kind of assumed that it's like, okay, he's gonna get a suit later on that's gonna address these problems. It's gonna be like a half-finished kind of thing. A bit like the Mark 42 from Iron Man 3 is obviously it got its proper red paint job in Age of Ultron. But this is never addressed as some kind of prototype. This was just what Ant-Man's costume looked like in this film for some reason. And it looks really, really bad. Guys, solid colors are much more easy on the eyes than just these constant cut-ups. This is just a clunker of an Ant-Man suit, and the stylistic degradation of the shrinky suits in the MCU is absolutely real and felt between this suit and Cassie's Stinger suit. Guys, please go back to just allowing some solid colors without black sections cutting through it, because this is just such a horrible mismanagement of this design. It feels like they looked at the Ant-Man 1 suit, a finished design, and just thought, what can we add to this? We'll put a circle on the chest and some lines here and this panel here and this thing here and this and this and this. I kind of don't hate the fact though that this has a slightly more armored look to it, especially like around the shoulders and stuff. That stuff's kind of cool. But this design is just horrendous. I have no idea what happened here. Coming in at number 5, we have the Time suit, as worn by Scott Lang and the other Avengers, and what we have here is a combination of Stark Tech and Pimtech, which is really cool because in Avengers Endgame everyone is coming together again, and like obviously Hank Pym and Howard Stark didn't get along, so to see this marriage of Stark and Pimtech here, it's a really cool thing. And you've got this very sort of clean-cut nanotech look of Stark Tech, but you've also got kind of the structure and shape of Pimtech. I especially love how the helmets have that devicey look of Pimtech while also having that more streamlined look of Stark Tech. Also, the red, black, and white color schemes are really nice. Emblazoned with the Avengers logo, this felt like a christening moment for everyone. Coming in at number 4, we have the Quantum Realm Exploration suit. I love how this looks like kind of a practical jumpsuit. It's not overly form-fitting, and how space-agey the helmet is while still having the mouthpiece of the Ant-Man suit. The colors as well, I like that they've gone for a lighter palette here with the light gray taking up the predominant spot, while there are still red and black accents on it. It's like a hybrid of the Ant-Man suit and a space suit, which are two designs I really like. Think a space suit designed by Hank Pym. This is what you'd get. And I must admit, I think I do enjoy the less streamlined look of Pimtech more than I do like the sort of the Stark Tech sort of nano look that they have in the later films. Especially these clunky metal appendages. There's just something so very 1950s about this whole getup. It's a really nice looking suit, and I definitely would have rather Scott had worn this in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania than what he actually ended up with. Seriously, they really dropped the ball with that design. Coming in at number 3 is the suit worn by Scott Lang in Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is an ever so slightly modernized version of his suit that he wore in the first Ant-Man film, but it's a bit more streamlined now. Like, all of the red details appear a lot more sewn in, it's got a nice texture to it, the red's a little more muted this time as well, and it's got more kind of a motocross kind of look to it than what we had with the very basic leather suit in the first Ant-Man. The first Ant-Man movie suit was much more device-like, whereas this one's a bit more superhero-y in some ways. Now, there are some black sections cutting into the red here, and it's not too much, definitely not as much as what we'd have in the Quantumania suit, but it's there for a reason. It's there to kind of craft the appearance of an ant's face, which I actually kind of like. That's not bad. Now, the reason it's kind of a little lower on this list, though, than other suits is because I really missed the light silver piping that was around the red sections, and I still prefer a more sort of a solid look. This is a suit where I don't really have any complaints with it. I just feel like it's been done better before, which is why it rocks in at third place, but it's really not bad. Coming in at number 2 is the Hank Pym Ant-Man suit, which was the first suit that Scott Lang would wear. Look, the Ant-Man and the Wasp suit isn't bad by any means, but this is 10 times better in my opinion. For one, it's just got a more practical look to it. All of this looks like it's a device. This looks less like a motocross outfit and more like a superhero suit, more like something that has function. I especially love things like the little details that service mobility, like the little piped sections around the knees and elbows. Fortunately, the helmet didn't see a whole lot of changes between movies because I really love this design, especially those red racing stripes up it, and the little lines where you can see where the helmet would retract. The light silver piping is just gorgeous and frames the red section perfectly, and the red is really nice and rich. It also just has a really nice aged quality to it as well. This looks like something that's been around for a while. You also have to take into account that this was the very first time that Ant-Man had been translated to live action in the MCU. And that classic Ant-Man design is one that is very difficult to translate, but what they came up with here was something that is immediately recognizable as Ant-Man while fitting in that kind of real-world setting. It looks distinctive, it doesn't look like a typical MCU suit, and it doesn't look like a typical superhero suit, but still this thing just screams Ant-Man. And coming in at number 1, we have a tragically underused little number. This is the Ant-Man suit from Captain America Civil War, which only appeared in one scene in the entire MCU, which is tragic because this suit is absolutely gorgeous. First thing that I absolutely love about this suit and wish we could revisit is the fact that it's a much more fabric-y suit than the other ones. It's less leathery and a lot more soft looking, and it has this really nice clean look to it. It looks almost kind of sporty, you know? It looks comfortable. It doesn't look like you'd be sweating buckets in this thing. It looks a little more breathable, but also the color contrast here is perfect. While this red is ever so slightly muted, it's a nice deep rich shade, but because it's not got that leathery texture, it really pops. Rather than having black accents cutting into it, we instead have these nice new gray accents which really complement it. And those gray accents create the look of an ant's face on the torso. These are a welcome addition that we never saw again. The black sections also less leathery, much more matted looking, and I think that's the main thing I love here is the matted colors. However, complementing that, really making this suit pop, is the really bright silver accents and piping around the red sections. It's broken up tastefully, but I love how much brighter these are. And then there's the helmet, which just looks like a more finished version of the helmet that he had in the previous Ant-Man film. They have done away with the red racing stripes, however I do think it's for the better in this case, as they're going for a much cleaner, much brighter silver for the faceplate, while having a nice matted dark gray for the rest of the helmet. The mouthpiece has been really nicely tidied up and looks really robust now. There's just a gorgeous sense of contrast with this suit, and it's such a shame we only got it for one scene, when this looks like the quintessential modernized version of what came before. If the original Ant-Man had kind of like a 1950s sci-fi look to it, this suit here has a slightly more sort of Japanese influence to it. Looks a little bit more Super Sentai. But I just love the fact as well that it's not covered in layer upon layer of leather with lines all over it and stitching marks. It's a really, really clean suit. And the fact that we went from this and just over time progressed to the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania suit, just, oh no, I can't stand it. The stylistic degradation of Ant-Man is real, folks. This suit here is perfect. I wish they could have stuck with it. I don't understand it either, because this is like a very unique sort of visual language to that first Ant-Man suit, you know? It's a very modernized version, yet the later suits took more cues from the Ant-Man 1 suit while giving it this more motocrossy, leathery CW look. I don't get it. You went from this really nice fabric suit to back to leather again. I don't understand. Why did we go from this piece of perfection here to downgraded Ant-Man 1 suits? I don't get it. I don't. There's never been an explanation in the story either. Oh, it makes me sad. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Oh, man, I really missed that suit. Oh, man, miss Civil War suit. Miss it. I hate the Quantumania suit. Oh, man. Oh, man. God damn. I'll put myself in a bad mood now. Look what I've done. Look what I do for you guys. The least you could do is subscribe. In all seriousness though, yeah, do subscribe. But what do you guys think? What's your favorite Ant-Man suit? What's your least favorite Ant-Man suit? Heck, include Wasp suits. So what do you think? Just comment below, discuss, and as always, yeah, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, consider subscribing, all that good stuff. And until the next time, guys, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. I say, you've made it to the end of the video! Congrats. No, but seriously, thanks a bunch for watching. And just now, I'll be extending a special thanks to the patrons in the $10 tier, who are
Adam Myers, Ken K, Legendary Ray Ray, Mr. SP, Sergio, That Jordo, and Where's Arnold?
What an amazing and generous bunch of people. Thank you guys so much for your support. And if you want to join the ranks of these amazing people right here, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Guys, these are not the easiest times in the world financially, so every little bit you folks are donating is doing wonders. I really would love to be able to do YouTube as a proper fully fledged career someday. It might just be a pipe dream, but maybe you guys can prove some people wrong. But of course, if donations aren't your thing, then, well, it means plenty to me that you just hit that cute little subscribe button over there. I didn't mean hit that way. Well, that's me done for the day. Thanks a whole bunch for your support, and have a fantastic day. I'm gonna see you so soon.
Look.